on the Department of Education. You can see the numbers here. We'll need another 400 high school mathematics teachers and another 250 science teachers each year just to break even. We produce quite a bit fewer than that each year in the state. And what's the economy going to do to these numbers? We always used to count on a bad economy for bringing us teachers. When people are laid off from business and industry, teaching looks like a good profession. It doesn't pay much, but it has security, and now that bubble has been burst, and so security is no longer one of those guaranteed options for teachers. And what is there for us to help incentivize high quality, ethical, intellectual people to become teachers? We have to think about that. We have to understand that right now, first and second year teachers, people that we signed, we had a contract with, we assured them that they would have jobs and they went into schools, will not have jobs next year in Peoria and in Mesa. Hopefully, many of those teachers will be able to be, rehired, but some will not. And these are young teachers, 22, 23 years old. So we've got to make some investments, and these are my priority investments. They're not everybody's priorities, and they won't be all your priorities. So feel free to disagree as we move through. Feel free to ask questions as we move through. It's more important that you learn than for me to teach. I'm a teacher, and all that matters to me is that people learn and come to understand, and that's best done when questions are asked than when someone presents in a kind of dry and didactical fashion. We have to think about incentives. We have to think about how do we provide forgiveness for people to decide, instead of going into engineering per se, to go into teaching, or to make teaching one of those careers that they go into, given that the majority of children who are my children's age, high school age, when they get out and when they finally matriculate through college and get out into the field, they'll have 5 or 6 different careers in their lifetime. 5 or 6 different careers. Why shouldn't teaching be one of those careers? Why should it have secondary status? Why shouldn't someone be able to go into teaching, then go into engineering, and then at some point in time come back into teaching? There's no reason that doesn't exist, except for the past, except for tradition, as Topol would have said, and Fiddler on the Roof. And those are traditions that we need to break. Tax credits for businesses. Intel is actually very interesting right now, creating their Intel Interns program, where they're supporting some of their employees who want to go into teaching to be interns in teachers' classes and get their teaching certification. Intel needs a break on that, because that costs money. That's a real tax credit, because it gives back to the community, not just in the immediate sense that there are more people in the classroom, but in the long-term sense that each of those teachers is meeting the needs of 30 to 160 kids every year, and those kids will meet the needs of other kids in the future. That gives back. And we need to create a new focus for the elementary and middle school teachers, content knowledge. And my mantra now is content minors for everybody. I don't think everybody needs to have a mathematics minor, but I do believe that being able to focus and having disciplinary knowledge is critical for the future of elementary education. We believe that children who want to learn art need to have someone who knows something about art and who has talent in that area teach them. If you want to learn music, you need someone who understands both music theory and music practice to be able to teach music. And I believe fundamentally the same thing applies to mathematics and to science. Doesn't mean they have to be a board scientist, but there needs to be both interest and expertise and the ability to practice scientific reasoning skills in the elementary grades, and we need to figure out how to redo what I do as a professor at Arizona State University. We need to maximize the contact and impact of the best teachers. That's a difficult one. We have to maximize the contact. There's so many children in this state that do not have access to the best teachers in science and mathematics, or to teachers that have knowledge of science and mathematics in the middle grades in particular. We need to utilize distance technology so that children in the four corners will have access to advanced placement coursework. And right now they don't have access. That is inequitable. Those children will not have the opportunities that my children have living in Tempe. merely because of geography, and that's unfortunate. When the ability to deliver good, high-quality instruction at distance is here now, and it's about willingness to make that happen. And we need to make teaching more like tutoring. I noticed I put here as 2 sigma effect. It turns out that the effect of a tutor, an individual tutor, on the individual's on a learner's learning, can't say it better than that, I guess, is 2 standard deviations greater than the learning of that same individual in a whole class, in a classroom, regular instruction. Doesn't mean I'm advocating for eliminating regular instruction and putting everybody with a tutor. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we need to utilize what we know about tutoring to make the opportunities for students' learning different. In particular, tutors employ more question and answer techniques and scaffolding methods, which means moving the student from where they're at to someplace better, as opposed to general broadcast kinds of questions to a large group of people, which is difficult to orchestrate. Tutors also engage students to be more active in their learning. They ask questions about students' learning, students give them answers about their learning, and tutors follow up with that. That's virtually impossible in a whole class setting for a teacher to do with every student every day. So teachers have to be very clever, and the best teachers do that, but it's very difficult, and they work hard at it. You need to also understand that that interaction, when you're working with someone who's interested in what you're learning and is right there and asking you questions about your learning, it's more enjoyable overall than typical whole group instruction. And the idea that, and one of the things that we can think about here in this group is how do we get, there's a lot of you out there who are STEM savvy, STEM aficionados, and when I say STEM I mean science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You have a difference to make in the life of a child. We can develop tutoring systems whereby we get people who understand the mathematics, and the science, and engineering, and technology, and business, those very difficult subject matter, provide some training and work with a kid. In a project I just did finished last year, a 3-year longitudinal project sponsored by the NSF. We interviewed kids once every 3 weeks for an hour. That's a cheap date. Once every 3 weeks for an hour, and those kids were fundamentally different in their mathematics achievement by the end of 3 years. That's a very inexpensive, very powerful intervention that can be done if we engage the community in taking responsibility for the learning of our children. And gifted kids need tutoring as well as low achieving kids. It should be, there are reasons for that. We need to also think about focusing on education bottlenecks. If you say, gosh, we've only got limited resources, there's a zero-sum game in the money that's available, I would focus on the middle grades right now. Over 40%, well, about half of all the students who are STEM capable entering the middle grades are not STEM capable by the time they leave the middle grades. Not only that, it's not just about achievement, it's also the fact that they now hate mathematics and science vehemently and will never re-engage. They turn off at that time for a lot of reasons, many of which are legitimate, but most of which we can blame on the larger systemic issues, not on any individual teacher, again, but on the larger systemic issues facing middle school children, facing middle school teachers, and those are things that we can change. The teachers are typically poorly prepared in mathematics and science. That is not the teacher's fault. That is the fault of our certification laws. That is also a fault of the things that I do in my program related to certification laws. We have to coordinate with the Department of Education and change that. And you have a role in lobbying for changing our education system to better reflect how people learn and what teachers can do to maximize that learning. We need to make the middle school curriculum more rigorous. Algebra by 8th grade is a good step. I actually think it's a fantastic law. Implementing that law, however, is not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult. In particular, we have to teach a different